Hey everybody, welcome back. HSC Podcast 113. Got Big Box Steve on the mic and the Big Smooth. No Fresh West tonight, but we'll make do. And just in case you wonder, just give you this look before I get in the way. That's my Singletary jersey. You know, I'm representing the Bears. You know, Big Smooth and Fresh West, they're Raiders guys. So a lot of that talk coming in the NFL season. If you're watching on YouTube, appreciate you watching it. Don't forget to subscribe, like, leave some comments. And for all of our Spotify listeners, which continues to grow, appreciate the listens. Thanks for listening. And also, don't be afraid to leave some comments or answer the one simple question: how'd you like the podcast? It's not a hard question. But here we go. Tonight, we're going to recap the NBA Finals, getting some good top fives. I got a fun trivia. It'll be
Great.
fun. I just did it, so I just want to see how you do. So
Okay.
it'll be fun because it wasn't even my trivia. It was actually Holly's trivia for me. So
Oh,
I want to see how that goes. But let's get into it. Let's start off with this NBA Finals recap. Celtics obviously win the series, 5 games. So I think Wes had game five. Not from the beginning. You and I had game six when we first started talking about the series. After game two, we had a second podcast. I thought it looked like a sweep at that point, but I mean, Dallas came back and won a game. So just to talking about this series, I mean, I know we talked about how it wasn't. I know it wasn't the greatest finals. I mean, to you, like what didn't make it a great finals? Like when you say, "Hey, this wasn't the greatest finals I watched," like what's your thought process there?
I think it's easy, actually, an easy answer that's so simple that everyone just forgets it because they're like, oh, Luca, Dallas isn't that good.
They didn't
I
look
mean,
good.
I mean, if we think about it, um, they the Clippers, Kawhi decided not to play. They win that series. They had the Thunder, right?
Thunder, yeah,
They were young, and then they had
inexperienced.
the T Wolves that were young. So I just the Celtics, and that's the other thing. It's like everyone's like, "Oh, well, you never know, Luca and Kyrie." Like I just watched a video of all these talking heads talking about how the Mavericks are going to beat the Celtics. I'm like, why does everyone have to make it so hard? Celtics were the best team at the beginning of the year. They're the best team at the end of the year. Simple as that. The Mavericks got not lucky, but I mean, they went on a run against teams, and then they went up against a team that was far superior to them, and that's
Right.
what happened.
Well, and when you look at the teams they played, right, and you compare them top to bottom versus the Celtics, it's not a good comparison. I think Minnesota probably is the best comparison, but they pretty much laid an egg in that series against Dallas. And when you say they were lucky, that is kind of lucky to come out and have a team that does have better players than you not play well. What stuck out for me is that I don't particularly believe that Boston played that well. They could have played a lot better and swept them, but they didn't shoot the ball at a particularly high percentage, a lot of times, but they play great defense, which I'll give them that. But when you come out and you play against a team that probably played to maybe 75% of their capacity and still beat you in 5 games, should you have really been in the NBA Finals?
Yeah, that was the thing is I wasn't really excited for this finals when it was going. I'm like, Boston's going to win. It wasn't really. And then I'm like, oh, there's not even. Was there any even good games? That's the other thing. It's like there was not a memorable great game. Everything
Right.
was kind of a blowout. I mean, you had the Celtics won by 7, but on the what game 3, but it was
Yeah,
still close.
game three, there was some things that happened at the end of game three that could have went either way and that went Boston's way. And maybe if Dallas ended up getting a few of those calls, especially like the foul at the end, which that was questionable for a lot of people, and they win that game and then it goes 2-1, then does it become like a better series?
Right.
Because then if Dallas wins game four, now you got a 2-2, that makes it a whole different series.
I saw there was another like highlight reel of Luca playing defense.
Dude.
It was so bad.
Well, what's interesting is, and I'm not gonna, I said it, in our podcast, and you can see our short of it. That that's what I'm talking about, dude. Luca hurts his team in ways that, I mean, you saw him in this game not blocking out or just standing there, and then Derek White comes around behind him and steals an offensive rebound because he's just standing there. Or he goes, misses a shot, and he wants to look at the refs and not get back on defense. Now you're creating a 3-on-2, against your guys. Now you're putting them in bad position. So that's the problem I have with Luca. Is he's a great offensive player, really good passer. There's a lot of things he does well, but he doesn't play a full game. Something interesting is game four, and we also have a short of West saying this. Dallas didn't play their whole roster, right? They didn't play it. And he hit it in the short. He says, put Tim Hardaway in, or Tim Hardaway Jr. in. In game four, Tim Hardaway Jr. goes in there and scores what, 15? And then,
Yeah,
but
but
if you look at how many players they played and the minutes they played in game four, it was more than all series. It's the only game of the series where their players played a lot, 10 players, 11 players playing more than a few minutes a game.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Hardaway played 12 minutes and he had 15 points. Five
Right.
of 7 from 3. 5 of 7. Wouldn't you like to have a 3-point shooter like that in your game?
Yeah, because what happens when Kyrie or Luka goes to the basket, you need somebody to kick it out to. And you
Well,
can't keep kicking it out to guys who are tired, like PJ Washington in the third quarter missing shots.
well, yeah, here's the funny thing. So Denver won by almost 40 that game, right? Uh,
Dallas. Yeah.
yeah, Dallas. Luca was 0 for 8 from 3.
Right.
Kyrie was 1 of 6.
Yeah. And Luka still scored 29.
Right. He was 12 of 26.
So just talking about Boston for a second, you've been saying this whole time, more complete team, better team, played some good defense, minimized turnovers, especially in game five. When you look at that Boston team, what's their future look like?
Well, pretty good considering you got what White, Holiday, Brown, and Tatum are all going to be there for a while. Pritchard and Hauser are pretty good off the bench, right? Horford said he's coming back next year, so
And Porzingis, obviously,
yeah, and Porzingis.
who, didn't have the greatest playoffs, but when you look at him as a full year player, that's a good center.
Mm-hmm. And
So
just imagine if they had him healthy.
is Dallas set for a back to back?
Now they're a one and done. I mean,
Not Dallas. I'm sorry, Boston.
oh, yeah, Dallas. I don't think Dallas is getting back to the finals, but I think Boston can get back. I mean, they got their core back.
Right.
You don't know about the Knicks because OG and Hartenstein are free agents. You don't know about the Cavs because they're already talking about Donovan Mitchell wanting out. Um, 76ers, all I hear this offseason is like, 76ers are going to get Paul George, or the 76ers are going to get, Trae Young, or the 76. Come on, man. Be realistic here. We'll see what you get. But then
Right.
you get Embiid healthy. Now, if Embiid's healthy and they get another person to go with Maxey and Embiid, yeah, then they can challenge.
Right. I mean, that's Maxi. I think he has a lot of potential. I think he could be a really good player for a long time. But they need that component. That's what what you just said is if they get that third component, they could be real tough.
Yeah. But Indiana, I don't think they're that good. I
Well,
mean,
I was the reason I asked, I was breaking it down. I was like, I don't see any reason the Celtics can't go back to back.
no, I don't either. I mean, if completely healthy, what Tatum and Brown are like almost, you could argue they're both top 10, top 15 players, right?
Right.
And then healthy Porzingis is a top 25 player. And Drew Holiday. I mean, that was like the what we're gonna go over later with the top five backcourt tandems. I got this because they were making the um talking that Luca and Kyrie,
Luca Kyrie, like where do they rank as far as the top backcourts?
but I'm like, I'd rather take Drew Holiday and Jalen Brown over
Brown.
Luca and Kyrie.
Yeah, I mean that's tough. Um, Holiday does a lot of good things though, and but I think Holiday benefits from the quality of the team that he's on too, right? Because Tatum, I think, takes a lot of pressure off of Holiday.
Right.
Where when you look at Luca Kyrie, they don't have that small forward, power forward to take any of that pressure off of them.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can see where you're coming from there, but Tatum is the X factor there. So that's a tough one for me. But I did see that, they were talking about this, and why we probably come to this topic tonight, right? How good is that Kyrie Luca backcourt,
They're great offensively, but that's
right?
about it.
Yeah, there's not a lot of defense, right? There's not a lot of hustle. There's also, when I think about them, the biggest thing for me for them is the attitude. Like they don't have the attitude for the game that when you look at some of the great backcourts that they really have the attitude to play well, to be a part of the game for the full time. Like they're playing all 48 minutes. And I don't see that from Kyrie and Luca. And Kyrie, to be all in all honesty, he's just not he's not a gamer. When
Yeah.
it counts,
Yeah.
look
Well,
what he did.
I mean, he was when he was with Cleveland because he did take over against what the Warriors, right?
Yeah, he had
Everyone
some
talks
big
like,
shots at the end.
yeah, if it wasn't for Kyrie, LeBron doesn't win that championship.
Yeah. But you also have LeBron, right? That takes away and so yeah, I mean, so maybe it's just now. Maybe he's getting older and
Well,
that
you saw when
happens.
I posted that Mozula was in Kyrie's draft class.
Right. That's nuts. So the coach of the team you're playing was in your draft class.
Right. He didn't get drafted, but yeah, he was that in 2011.
Yeah. So before we get into this, so we're gonna do a top five backcourts because from that Luca, but I want to give you this little trivia. And so what we're the the question was is college, like where do these guys go to college?
Okay.
So let me get to the top here. And it's easier at the top, right? It gets a little
Right.
harder as you get down to the bottom, but
Yeah.
I was a little surprised, and Holly was really surprised. Is so a lot of these are easy. Carmelo Anthony,
Syracuse.
Anthony Davis,
Um, that Kentucky,
Kevin Durant,
Texas,
Zion Williamson,
Duke,
Kemba Walker,
UConn.
Jalen Brunson,
Oh, Villanova,
Blake Griffin,
Oklahoma,
Jay Williams,
Duke,
Tyler Hansborough,
Indiana.
Jimmy Federer,
Who? Oh,
Jimmy,
Jimmer
Jimmer Federer,
for that. BYU,
Steph Curry,
Davidson,
Emeka Okafor.
UConn.
And by the way, this is the list of where they ranked them as how good they were in college,
Oh wow.
which is also interesting. So Greg Oden,
Ohio State,
JJ Redick,
Duke.
Trey Young.
Oh gosh, Trey Young. Um,
This was a tough one for me too.
Oklahoma.
Mhm. That's exactly what happened to me. I had to think about it for a little bit.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah. Michael Beasley.
Oh gosh, Michael B. Kansas State,
No. Oh yeah, no. Dwayne Wade,
Marquette.
Doug McDermott. First of all, number 18 on the list, by the way.
Why can't I think of Doug? I know he was a mid-major. Creighton,
Yeah, good job. I didn't get that one. Adam Morrison,
Gonzaga,
Juan Dixon,
Maryland,
John Wall,
Kentucky,
Shane Battier,
Duke,
Mario Chalmers.
Mario Chalmers. Why can't I think? Uh, Mario Chalmers. It's. Why can't I think of? I know Mario Chalmers. It was at the ACC school.
Oh, this is a big one, dude.
Why can't I think of Mario Chalmers?
It's
Kansas.
Kansas, actually.
I just said it though. Did you hear me say it?
Well, you said ACC first, though.
I know, and then I go Kansas before you.
Uh, Trey Burke,
Michigan.
Frank Kaminsky,
Um, Minsky was. I don't. Was he the same as Hansborough? I
no,
don't.
Hansborough was UConn, dude. Or, I mean, Carolina.
Right, I got that one wrong. I said Indiana for Hansborough because I was thinking of the Pacers for some reason. Kaminsky is he's Big Ten.
Yep.
Um, I think it's not Wisconsin
Wisconsin. Buddy Hield.
in Indiana.
No, I missed this one. Oklahoma.
Oh,
Shabazz Napier.
UConn,
Yeah. Evan Turner threw me off.
Indiana.
I same thing I
Oh,
said. That's
Ohio
funny.
State.
Ohio
Ohio
State.
State. Dang it.
Because it's like the same colors, dude.
Yeah, I
I
forgot
missed
Ohio
that one
State.
too.
Dang it.
Jameer Nelson.
Jameer Nelson was
It's just a hard college to remember.
why can't I think I don't think so. I don't think it's that. No, I don't think he went there.
They had
Um,
that run in the tournament, and they had the other dude on the team too.
I know I'm trying to think. I got three teams in my head. Yeah, this one's going to be a bad one. I'm going to go Temple.
St. Joe's.
Oh, St. Joseph's. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean that's some of the top 30 that were hard. I'm gonna go to skim through just a couple that maybe let's see, these are all easy. Oh, Andrew Bogut.
Utah.
Yeah. I thought he came straight from Australia to the NBA.
No, he went to Utah.
Yes, I miss it. Oh, Jared Solinger,
Oh, Ohio State.
Ohio State.
He was, yeah, there.
Yeah, so that was one I missed. David West,
Virginia.
Xavier.
Xavier. Oh, yeah. Because they had a big power forward school there.
Yeah, so I mean I mean now we're getting into like the bottom 50, so
It's weird that there's nothing from like the 80s,
no, and these were this site's top like 100 players.
like college basketball players.
Yeah,
So like Christian Leitner isn't in.
right. It's not on there. Oh, since 2000.
Okay. I was
I didn't
like,
see that. And she didn't tell me that's what I was doing. But that it was a good exercise, and I mean you did just as well as I did. Missed some of the same ones, but
so none of the Florida guys were on there?
they were. I just missed them. Al Horford and Joakim Noah, and were on there.
All right.
So that
Like,
was
no TJ Ford or
no TJ Ford.
who was Conley? No Michael Conley?
No, it's Iowa State again, right?
And none of the other Villanova guys. So no DiVincenzo or Bridges or Hart.
I'll tell you who was on there was the McNamara. You remember him?
Oh, from Syracuse?
Syracuse.
Yeah, he's with Carmelo,
Yeah.
the point guard.
But that was an interesting just a thought process, and just to go back and remember all those. And it's just funny, like as she's going through the list and trying, and she's like, I can't believe how many of these you know.
Now the best is what if she does like it gets 80s and 90s.
Oh yeah, it'd be over. Like I'd have all of them. Yeah, that's not even my era. Like let's get
Right.
back to our old school when we were watching basketball, college basketball, like 100%, right?
Oh.
So that was fun. Good job. Like you did well. So let's talk about this. You said Luca, Kyrie, and I don't understand why the media wants to have this conversation about Luca and Kyrie being one of the best backcourts.
Because they had nothing else to talk about for this
Because when you
final.
start
None of
thinking
them.
about it, and when you start just looking back, I don't think I have them in my top 20. I mean, maybe not at all.
Right.
So we're gonna do an HSC podcast top five backcourts NBA, and we're going all time. So we'll pull this up. This was tough. There was some, there's some ones that I left out, and that it's hard to leave those out. And so let's go with number five. Why don't you go ahead and lead off?
Okay, so my number five, and I'm just going off of, I'm not like, because people are talking like accolades and everything. And I'm just like, if I was starting a starting five, if I could have these two as part of my team, that's who I'd take. Okay. So there's some I left off my list that had great accolades, won multiple championships, but I'd like, if like in like the eye test for me.
Right. And at their given time too, right?
Right. So my number five, and this one's gonna, people are gonna be like, really? Is Mitch Richmond and Tim Hardaway.
Wow. You know what? Jeez, I didn't even have that on my list, and now I'm really disappointed I didn't. That's good. That's really good. People don't realize how good Mitch Richmond was.
No, because he was in Sacramento and Golden
Right.
State. Basically, back then, no one in the East Coast ever watched anything on the West Coast. So,
Did anybody have a better pull up jumper in transition in fast break than Mitch Richmond?
mm. And that's the thing is like also these Gen Zers and everything that talk trash about Jordan, and they're like, "Oh, well, Jordan's the best shooting guard, and Jordan's was Clyde Drexler, and he sucked." I'm like, first off, Clyde Drexler was awesome, but then the second guy is Mitch Richmond, who was amazing also.
Coming down on the fast break, though, when you hit him on the wing, he could stop on a dime and he would just drain it every time. That's a good one. I'm a little disappointed that I didn't have him on my list.
Yeah, because
That's
he averaged. I mean, he really, because he became the focal point when he went to the Kings, because he was only with the Warriors for 3 years.
right.
But he still put up,
He's 20, 20, 23, 22, 23, I guess.
yeah, all 3 years with Golden State, he had 22, 22, 24.
Right. So right there, right?
Yeah, and then he went to the Kings, and I know that's without Hardaway, but it was like 22, 22, 23, 23, 23, 26, 23.
Right.
And then he went 19, 17, 16 because his career was getting towards the end, but still.
Well, and then you look at Tim Hardaway. You got the U tattoo staff.
The best killer crossover in the game.
Right. That's a good one, man. My five, it's carried by Jordan, but I gotta put you because I can't not put Jordan in there. I don't care who you with.
Right.
And so I got him and Harper at five.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got three championships out of it. And then you got Jordan, and Harper was a good defensive player. He could hit open shots, and he was a good complement to Jordan. Like that's the kind of guy you want when you have a guy like Jordan, right? You want a guy who can protect the ball, play defense, and hit an open shot.
Right. Well, and before he went to the Bulls, I mean, he was like the
Yeah,
number
he
one
played for
option.
what, the Cavs?
The Cavs and then the Clippers.
Right,
He averaged 22, 15, 18, 22, 23, 19, 18, 18, 20 before he got to the Bulls.
right. So he was a great player.
Right.
But
And then he
when you
went
go
to
to
the
play Jordan,
Bulls.
you're not get the shots anymore.
Yeah, then he went to the Bulls and he only got over 11 points one time.
Right.
And that could have been after Jordan retired.
But that's for me, I mean, again, Harper didn't put up the best numbers with him, but that's a great tandem. You won a lot of games, you won championships, and you were a good compliment to Jordan. And it's hard not to put Jordan on the list. So I got Jordan and Harper at 5.
One thing also about Harper, he won 5 NBA championships because then he went to the Lakers and won
Right.
two.
And he won. Yeah, won 2 more. I saw that. I was looking at that. I was like, wow, that's a pretty good finish to your career.
Yeah.
So my 4, I mean, this is right up your alley. I mean, I got Frazier and Monroe. And this, they may have not have won all the accolades and the championships, that some of the other guys won. But when you talk about straight skill, they could be number one.
Right.
This is a pair that you could look back in NBA history and you could say Frazier and Monroe could be the best backcourt ever. But I'm there's a couple other factors that I put into it when I was looking at this. But skill wise, I don't think it gets better than Frazier and Monroe.
I won't disagree with you there.
So that's my number 4, and this is 100% skill based pick.
Yeah, well, and then the thing that hurts them is the team they were on was so stacked. You had what, 7 Hall of Famers on that roster?
Yeah,
I mean, Walt Frazier, Earl of Pearl, Bill Bradley, DeBuscher, Willis Reed, Jerry Lucas, Dick Barnett. And then you had the greatest coach, arguably the greatest coach ever on your bench too, and Phil Jackson.
right. Yeah, it's tough.
But yeah, well, that's funny because I got them as my number 4 also.
Oh, wow.
Because I mean, it's true. Like Clyde Frazier is the prototypical point guard.
Yeah,
And he could score too. He averaged the 73 season when they won the championship, he averaged 21 points a game. And then Earl the Pearl had 15. So I mean, yeah, Earl the Pearl, when he was with Baltimore before he came to the Knicks, he was, and then that's just another one. He had to take a back seat because that team was so good.
right. Well, and you all like for me, when you look at Pearl Monroe, dude, there's other things outside of the NBA that made him the GOAT, right? Like one of the best players to ever play basketball. Because he's just a basketball player. Like he could do things that people weren't doing back then.
Right.
And so if I'm gonna put together a backcourt, I'm taking that. Like if you put it like on a video game and you're like you rated them all based on their primes and their skills, that's a tough one to beat.
Right.
All right, well you got at 3.
My number 3 is they're winners. They played well together. They played defense and they could score also. And that's Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars. Joe Dumars was the Jordan stopper if you could stop Jordan. And I think everyone forgets how good Isaiah was.
Yeah. Well, when
Because
you look
Jordan
at
buried.
like who would you put at your point guard? And it's tough because Magic has the height, right? But if you're looking at like a traditional point guard to run your offense, to play defense, who's going to score but is also going to assist. I mean, that's a guy you want.
Well, and in the game, what was it, game 6 against the Lakers, where he was playing on a severely sprained ankle and put up all those points.
Right. Yeah, I mean, It's kind of funny because I got Thomas and Dumars at number three also.
This is why we need Wes here, so we could have some.
So we can get some different picks. But the thing about Thomas and Dumars is, they put together a team, and they were really the anchors of the team, right? But it's about winning. It's about competitiveness. It's about playing against one of the best players to ever play the game and still winning. You know, that's when you look at them and you're like, well, you beat the best player to ever play.
Well, they beat multiple. They beat the Magic Johnson Lakers. They beat the Larry Bird
Right.
Celtics. They beat Jordan's Bulls to win championships. I mean,
So yeah, I mean, it's hard not to have them in there. And Dumars for me, super underrated.
yeah.
He did a lot of things, off the ball, and he still could shoot the ball really well. You don't want to leave him open. It's the last guy you want to leave open, right? So I definitely I'm agreement there. I got them at three.
And if you would have said backcourt, they might be number one because then you put Vinnie Johnson in there.
Oh my gosh, dude!
Cool.
When you put the microwave in, it's unstoppable. You know, here's the thing, dude. Number two was tough. So I got Steph and Clay here. I mean, when you talk about the Splash Brothers and the ability to score and change the game in a fast pace, like what do you do? Like, God forbid both of them are hitting. Because if one of them's hitting, it's tough enough. But they both have the ability to hit eight, nine threes in a game. So it's hard for me to, put them up this high, but statistically and the eye test and the championships and everything, like you got to put them in there. So I got Clay and Curry here. Not the best, and Clay plays great defense. I will give him that. I do like Clay's defense. But Curry, obviously, he's not a world beater when it comes to defense. But he's gonna tire you out. So, maybe you can't score if you're tired. So I got the Splash Brothers at two.
I think we're kind of in the same, but not the same because my number two is Byron Scott and Magic Johnson. Um, that's another one where like Byron Scott came over from the Clippers and he was really good. And he kind of, because they had Worthy and stuff too. So he's kind of the third wheel. And it was more like Magic had already won a bunch of championships with Kareem and Worthy and Jamal Wilkes and stuff like that before Scott got there, Norm Nixon. Um, but man, when those two in their prime, they were unstoppable.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, this is a better version. I'm not gonna say a totally better version, but this is a similar version to a Jordan Harper.
Right.
And Magic, it's so hard with Magic because he has so much in his game. He's got height, he can shoot, he can pass.
Oh, he's slacked by the Clippers.
So Magic's tough there.
I guess I was totally off base. He never played for the Clippers. He got traded before playing for the
Right.
Clippers. Byron Scott.
Because they played like what, 11 years together? 12
I
years?
say 83 to, well, Scott left in 93, so yeah. So I was probably wrong there. I was probably they played a lot together, so
All right. Well, what's your number one?
anticlimactic, it's Splash Bros. Just because I mean they changed. the game, probably not for the good, but they did. And when they were both on, it was impossible to beat them.
Right.
And it was more like them. Um, Byron Scott was good, but he was like a third behind Worthy and Magic. Ron Harper was good, but it was Jordan Pippen. Um, with Clay, he was number two to Steph.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, and so I went back and forth with this, and surprise, surprise, I got Magic and Byron at number one. Um, really, the length of term is very similar, right? Because Clay and Curry are now the longest duo to play. But I guess the one thing about Byron and Magic, and you're right, they had Worthy and they had other players and AC Green and all these other players that were good, but it was the Showtime Lakers. And I like watching Curry and Clay hit threes, but there is nothing like watching the old school Showtime Lakers. And so I'm probably on the same wavelength as you, as where I wanted to put Curry and Clay at number one, but my Gen X in me said, you know what? Let's go Magic and Byron. Just because I'm such a Magic fan. I mean, I hate, being a Blazer fan and really liking Magic that much. So I got Magic and Byron at number one. So that's our. So let's just run down our top five. So these are our top five uh, guard backcourt tandems NBA history. So at number five, I got Jordan Harper. Number four, I got Frazier and Monroe. Three, uh, Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars. Two, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and number one, Magic Johnson, Byron Scott.
I got five, Mitch Richmond, Tim Hardaway, four, Frazier Monroe, three, Thomas Dumars, two, Magic and Byron Scott, and one, Splash Brothers.
Those are both. It's surprising how close. Like we were pretty on par there.
And then I got honorable mentioned because it's hard because I've never, seen any tape or seen them play, so it's hard for me to see. But it's Kuzi and
Right,
Jones.
Jones,
Huh?
Kuzi and Jones. Right.
Yeah, and Jerry West and Gail Goodrich.
Yeah, I think those two, like if we watch them play, would easily be in our top five. The
Right.
reason they're not is because that's before our time, and we didn't really get to see how they dominated,
Right.
at those times. Okay, so great top five there. Backcourt NBA tandems. Wrapping up the NBA season. I just last question. Are you all excited for two things? One, next year's NBA season, and then next week's NBA draft.
It all depends if the Knicks re-sign OG and hopefully Hartenstein, I'll be excited for the next season. If OG leaves, I'll be so irritated because they would have given up RJ Barrett and quickly for him and for him
Right.
just not really too excited about the draft. There's not really anybody that great. It's kind of like the NFL draft next season and next year. It's going to be like, eh.
Right. I mean, I kind of I think I'm on the same thought process where I think next year's NFL draft compared to this one is going to be quite a bit of a letdown. Where when you look at last year's NBA draft, Wemby coming out, and so
There's no one like that. I mean, the Hawks are talking about trading down
right.
because
So
they're like, yeah, we don't want any of these people.
and I guess overall, the only thing I'm excited about is more on the Western Conference to see how Minnesota and Oklahoma City develop. because I think those teams, when I look at that, like I think they could become really good teams.
Well, don't forget, I mean, Denver will still be around too.
Oh, yeah, I mean, of course. But the development of those young teams almost makes it look like because then you have San Antonio, right? Maybe they get a couple pieces, and so there's a little development happening out there in the Western Conference. But all in all, yeah, the NBA season this year was it's not the greatest.
Well, it got my hopes up, and then everyone got injured for the Knicks. So then I was
Yeah.
like, great.
So we'll see. We'll see how next year's NBA season goes. Um, quick before we get into our next topic, let's talk a little. We got to talk a little NFL. Not a lot happening in the NFL. Obviously, this off season, but like you said, Hard Knocks.
The Bears.
We're going to Chicago. So how's that going to go?
I don't know. I'll be honest. When they had the Raiders had it, and I'm being a Raiders fan, I still didn't care.
Yeah,
I think I watched a little bit of it, but it wasn't like must see TV. None of the Hard Knocks have really been that must see TV for me.
yeah. It was a lot better when it first started. The one thing that I think might be a little better this year is because you're going to get to see a lot of talent that the Bears haven't had in the past,
Right.
and that's kind of exciting.
Well,
You know,
especially
to
for you.
what's that?
I said, especially for you, man. It's like, oh man, I could finally have a 4,000-yard passer, maybe.
Maybe you never know with Eberflus at coach, dude. So NFL topics, not a lot happening in NFL, but one topic I want to hit real quick. Who in the NFL this year coming up? Who do you think's going to lead the league in rushing? It's a
Probably
tough
Derrick,
off the top question.
probably Derrick Henry. I mean, the Ravens are made for running.
Yeah. But you
Um,
got Lamar taking a lot of the carries.
yeah, but like Chubb's coming back from injury. Barkley's always injured. Jacobs has been injured now, and plus they brought back AJ Dillon.
Well, and you're going to a team that now is almost looking like a pretty predominant passing team.
Yeah. Um, probably Taylor from the Colts because you know him. He's going to be doing lots of read options with Anthony
Right.
Richardson. My money would be on Taylor or Derrick Henry.
Taylor and Derrick Henry. I'm gonna go with McCaffrey. As he stays healthy, obviously. I mean, you get on the Madden cover and now you're in
He's
trouble.
done. 49ers
But
season's over with.
I can still see because you know how, the coaches, right? You know how Shanahan, like he's gonna run the ball. So, I mean, I was thinking about this, and Henry was my first thought. What is the running game over in the NFL? That's my real question.
No. No, because look at what the Ravens did, and then in the playoffs, what they did. So obviously, they need to realize the running game's not over because you lose if you don't run the ball. I mean, even the Chiefs with Pacheco, they have a running game, right? I mean,
Right. Well, and you think about what maybe Harbaugh comes in and does it, the Chargers, right? You know he's going to run the ball.
well, yeah, I guess Austin Eckler, they're like, why'd you leave the Chargers? And he's like, they wanted me to run the ball 300 times in the season. I'm like, that's not my game.
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's not his game, but come on,
no,
you're a running back, dude.
yeah, but he'll probably likes to he's more of a pass catcher. Um,
What kind of year you think Barkley's going to have?
so hard to say because you just don't, if he's healthy, he's going to have a good year.
Yeah. Doesn't that, I guess for me, when I look at Barkley's career, he's not had those kind of weapons around him before.
Right.
And doesn't that help him? Like, and we especially think about the getting out in the flat, catching the ball in the flat. When you got Smith and Brown and Goddard, all out there.
Well, I think every season that he's healthy, he does well,
Right.
but it's like half this time.
Yeah.
And then
So it's an
you
injury
forget
problem.
my homer pick, Zamir White,
Yeah.
because he's going to run the ball.
Yeah. What
And
else can you do?
last year when Jacobs got hurt, he did pretty well.
Yeah.
So
What about ETN?
why, when you got the one of the richest quarterbacks in the NFL now, you're going to give it the ATN a lot?
But he's really progressed though.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to give ATN the ball, like he's more of an Eckler. I don't expect him to get like 30 carries a game.
Yeah, it's more like maybe 15 to 20 and another 5 to 7 pass
Right. No,
catches.
like if we're not talking all-purpose yards, yes.
Yeah. And then I guess the last question comes down to Bijan Robinson. Like, does he come out to be like what he's a top 10 pick? Does he come to fruition?
Yeah. I mean, he was pretty good last year. It's just that,
They had a horrible coach.
yes. And they're like, oh, let's just decide we're going to do Algier here instead of Robinson.
Right. I mean, I like Bijan Robinson in that scenario.
And then Gibbs is good too, but Montgomery is going to take lots of touches too.
Yeah, they're too mixed bag there. Like it's equal 50-50 with them.
Mhm.
So I don't know. And Gibbs is also he's that swing back.
Right.
So I mean it's tough because you almost have to be a great receiver as well, as a running back these days.
I guess don't forget about Aaron Jones, right?
Right? I mean, because if you're a coach, well, let's just think about this for a second. You have JJ McCarthy, right?
They're going to start Sam Darnold though, which is hilarious.
But either way, let's say you start Sam Darnold. What's your saving grace? It's to run the ball.
Right.
You play it safe. You let him hand the ball off. You throw in, short second and short down, right? And you try to keep him from committing turnovers. So Aaron Jones might have a big year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
And
Um,
then I have a sleeper besides Zamir White, James Conner.
yeah, because Arizona they just don't have anything.
Well, they got Marvin Harrison Jr. now, so they
Yeah.
have someone to distract.
I mean, let's be honest though. How good of a year does Marvin Harrison Jr. have? He probably goes for what, 30 or let's say 40 catches, 50 catches, maybe
I don't know. We'll see.
for 1,000, 1,200 yards.
Yeah. I think the focal point will be to get him the ball, though.
Right. But James, you're right. James Conner's going to get it at least 50% of the time.
Yeah.
But he's got to stay healthy too.
Right.
He's recently had some injury problems. So that I was just looking at all the different running backs and the running games. I'm like, wow, like it's changed so much. Like who's really going to dominate it?
There's still actually a lot of teams that have bell cow running backs, though, if you think about it. Because you got McCaffrey, you got Connor, you've got Nick Chubb, you've got um Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley.
Austin Eckler.
Yeah. Well, the Eckler, though, they also have Brian Robinson Jr. there, though. Um, what's was it Singletary? Who's in Houston Texans? Oh, the
Texans.
Texans. Joe Mixon.
Yeah, Mixon went to the Texans.
Yeah.
Who's running back at Cincinnati now?
Zach Moss, isn't it? I think
That's
so. I
rough.
think it's Zach Moss.
That's tough. So maybe Joe Burrow leads the league in passing.
Yeah. Oh, let's see. Who are we at?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. What about Pittsburgh?
Well, that's a tough one because it's Jalen Warren's kind of taking Najee Harris's touches
So
now.
yeah, he's getting carries from Najee.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you look at their passing game, and Pittsburgh is a historical running team.
Right.
I think I got I'm gonna I have to go with Chubb. I think I'm gonna go with Chubb to lead the league.
Yeah, if he's healthy.
Yeah. It- and he's not historically injury prone. It was just
Right.
this. I mean, what can you do?
Man, I looked up the Bengals. It is Zach Moss.
Yeah. So I think I'm gonna go with Chubb. I think I'm gonna go with Chubb to lead the league in rushing.
Okay. So you got Chubb, I got Henry.
All right. Yeah, that was just I was looking at that too today, and I was like, I wonder what Derek thinks on this one. So that was a good one. But overall, NFL, obviously, well, I guess we're not as far away as we think we are. I
Yeah.
mean, we're really only a month and a half, right, from the first Hall of Fame game.
We're only a month away from NCAA football coming out. So for the play station. So Wes needs to get on these so he knows he needs to get working on that.
Right. Well, that will never happen, but
Yeah.
so we got to throw NFL in there because we're missing it, and it's coming around, coming around. But let's get into our top five today for entertainment. So if you guys are watching, listening, we like to hit entertainment, movies, music sometimes now, actors. This is an interesting top five we're gonna do today. So we got the HSC Podcast top five Emilio Estevez movies. Before we get into it, was this easier or harder than you thought it was going to be?
It's harder because there is a block where he did like 10 really good movies,
But that was it,
pretty much. I mean, there's about 12. That's about 12, but it was like until 1996, and then that was it.
right? And like for me, and it's just for me, there's different things I look at when I look at the movies, like how much did you really play in the movie? And also, you know, how good was the movie overall? And so there's a couple things that went into that for me. So let's get into this. Number five, I'll start. Since you started last time. This is a lot of people aren't going to agree with this one, but I love it. And it's Stakeout. Like if you haven't seen Stakeout, like it's one of those movies that you watch it and you feel it the whole time they're doing it, and you're like, what it feels like. And it's funny, but it's not funny in like the you're gonna roll on the floor laughing funny. It's like you just get it. Like they just got these little lines throughout the movie, and I'm a fan. And they made a second one, obviously, but so Stakeout it snuck in over some movies that probably could have beat it out, but he was a big part in it, which was what put it in there for me. Because some of the other movies that I would have put in there, he didn't play as big of a part as he did in Stakeout. So I got Stakeout at number five.
I have Stakeout at number five. Uh, uh,
Well, give them your reasoning.
I just remember watching it as a kid a bunch, and it's one of those where it's like it's a buddy cop movie in a way where they're two cops and they're basically it is what you said. It's like they mess with each other so much, and it's just a funny movie for me. And it's a good plot line. I mean, I technically, I guess Richard Dreyfuss is the star of it, but he gets just as much screen time.
Right. Equal screen time, which is important when you're talking about that person's best movies. All right. Stakeout number five. We're in cahoots there. What's number four?
Well, number four is actually why I came up with this top five because I watched the documentary about the Brat Pack. And what movie was the quintessential Brat Pack movie? And that is St. Elmo's Fire.
St. Almost Fire.
And he had a huge part in that because he had the whole story with Andy McDowell, and he was the waiter bartender at the St. Elmo's, and he was an integral part of that movie, and so that's why I got St. Elmo's Fire number four. And it's so crazy to think because I'm pretty sure it came out. Okay, it came out in '85, I think. Which is the funny part to me is that Breakfast Club. Yeah, they both came out in '85.
Right.
And
Same here.
one he plays a high school senior, and one he plays a college
Right.
graduate from college.
So I've seen St. Elmo's Fire so many times. And I'll be honest, I left it off my list. And it was tough because there's so many people in that movie and there's so many storylines in that movie. But you're right, like he does great and he's a big part of it. I mean, I love the movie, so there's nothing wrong with that pick.
And the soundtrack is great too.
Yeah. Number four for me is it's different. I know a lot of people aren't going to have it in their top five, but I got Mighty Ducks. It's one of those feel good movies, especially from, when we were kids and watching it. And I think when you're that, if you put this in front of even today's younger generation, it's one of those movies where they're going to enjoy it. It's got that, teamwork and storyline and everything goes with it. And he makes the movie. Yeah, some of the young kids do well in it, but you can't have that movie without him.
So isn't it kind of like because I've actually never really seen Mighty Ducks, so but isn't it basically a toned down Bad News Bears on Ice?
It really is. It's yeah, take out the risque part of Bad News Bears and put it on in a hockey rink and you got it. But it's a little more feel good than Bad News Bears. And it's a little more of that, teamwork Disney feel.
And I will say, as a Gen Xer, what I can't believe they let us watch Bad News, the original, like the Walter
Oh
Matthau.
man. Yeah,
Man, there's so much bad stuff in that.
it's horrible. Horrible. But I also believe that like it was a different thing for him. It was good for him, to play this type of part.
That's the last thing he really did.
Right.
Mm.
So I have to throw that in there, and if I didn't put that in there, Holly would be mad. So I got Mighty Ducks there at four.
Spoken like someone getting married.
Yeah, it's true. But I do enjoy it, so I can't say it's not on my list too. Number three, Repo Man. It's not the typical number three that you would see, but he is the guy in the movie, right? This movie is him. I will say it's not the best screenplay or writing you'll ever see, but that's why I put it in here because I think Emilio makes this movie better than it should have been. This could have been one of those movies that, it's like a 0 on Rotten Tomatoes. But because he did such a good job playing that part, and encompassing what it is to be like that young, getting into this industry type is what it is. It's like, it's not like he's a repo man, been doing it for 30 years. And it's like, you're jumping into an industry. He plays that part of, I'm new at this, but I'm going to do it well. And so he turned a bad movie into a good movie. So I liked it for that reason. I put up there at 3, Repo Man.
I had a Repo Man, but didn't make my list. But that was one of them I put on there. There's a few like that I were close. I mean, it was mostly because of Emilio, but I left them on the list because they weren't as good of movies. Um, Number three is going to shock Steve because he's probably got this one at one, I'm pretty sure. And that's Young Guns 2.
It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah. But for me, Young Guns 2 is great, but for me, it always thinks of that Christian Slater stole that movie.
Yeah.
So I got it at three because it is great, but I like the original better. And Arkansas Dave kind of took a lot of the funnier parts for me. So I got Young Guns at three. I love Young Guns 2 at three. I love the movie though.
I mean, it's really good. It's tough when you have two, one and two are very good. That doesn't happen a lot.
Right.
And so when you look at, Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, Young Guns, like these type of one and twos, that's tough to find.
Right.
So I agree. Chris Slater did a great job, but dude, he's Billy the Kid.
That's true. But have you heard of Arkansas Dave Rudabaugh?
Nobody killed more Mexicans than Indians than anybody. Wait, sorry, he's unalived more Mexicans than Indians than anybody.
Right.
You get banned for that one. All right, number two. What do you got?
I got the other quintessential Brat Pack movie, and that's The Breakfast Club. I mean, you can't say much. Breakfast Club is one of the all-time great movies.
Yeah.
It's a great ensemble cast, and I mean, I think he does best. Most of the movies he does best are in ensemble casts.
Yeah. Well, that's a big part of him being able to play within his own part with other people who maybe at sometimes overshadow him. But at the same time, he's not afraid to like just play the part and be himself.
Right.
And when you look at that movie and here I got it number two as well. You've got a great cast top to bottom of people coming into their own, but it's also well written, it's well acted, and it's just such a great story because it's something any kid that age or in high school or whatever you are, you can relate to it in some way or another because of all the different things they give you.
Right. I mean, the whole reading the letter at the end about who they are and everything.
Yeah.
That's
Well, and then they give you each type, and obviously they did it on purpose, but they give you the jock and the stoner and the princess and the nerd and the outcast. Like that's the point, right? And that's to help you understand what high school is all about. And even with the parts of the movie that you may not want to show your kids, like that. If you show a kid like this is what high school is, that's pretty accurate.
Well, yeah, because it's great because it shows the stereotypes and then they peel back the layers and
Right.
realize, oh, these aren't these people.
Throughout the movie. Yeah. And I mean, I got to be honest with you, I've probably seen it 1,000 times, and
Yeah.
I can quote it beginning to end. Like if you put the movie on, like you don't, you could we could put it on mute, and I'll just say it for you.
Uh,
So great movie. I also have number two. Love it. Such good acting in it. Judd Nelson, just man, I don't know that there's many people who play a part better than he played that part.
well, and that's what's amazing. I don't know it's this is about Emilio, but Judd Nelson in Breakfast Club plays that part, but then in St. Elmo's Fire, he's like
Right.
total
Plays the
opposite.
completely opposite. Yeah. I mean, it shows a great range. Yeah, but that particular part, like he nailed it. He nailed it. So number one, no surprise. Like you already broke the surprise, and I tied them together because I didn't want to put both of them on there because I would put Young Guns one and Young Guns two on my top five. So I just put them together into a number one. Because it's he plays Billy the Kid. He plays with the same thing you said, ensemble cast, right? Great actors, top to bottom. But at the same time, it's like he's still Billy the Kid. And if you like, for us, like we never would know what Billy the Kid is or who he was or anything like that, right? Because it's so far past our time. But in my head, when I watched that movie, I'm like, now I think I know who Billy the Kid was. That's how good he did in that role. Because I
Yeah.
can imagine Billy the Kid. I can imagine exactly what he did.
And you wouldn't have got, without that movie, you wouldn't have got Warren G's Regulate song,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And then you don't get one of the better songs, right? Yeah. So when you look at those little parts, just the little things like when he's like looking in the mirror and he's like, I think I see him. And the dude's like, what? And he's like, yeah, he's right there. And then the guy thinks, oh, yeah, you just messing with me, this young kid, because that's what Billy Kid was.
Right.
Yeah. And then he kills him. So, Young Guns for me has to be number one.
Well, that's, I wish I would have been like you because Young Guns is number one for me too. So I should have put them together. But
Yeah, and that allowed me to put in another one. That's why I did it.
well, since you did it, I'm going to put in another one and I'm going to go Men at Work.
Oh yeah. So Repo Man and Men at Work for me were almost interchangeable, even though it wasn't number five, it was number three. Like I could easily pop Men at Work up to number three.
Yep. That's where I'm going to put Men at Work at three and then put both Young Guns together at
Yeah,
one. Because,
it's
yeah,
it's so
I,
good.
you know what the best, I know it's, but for me, it's, I can Dean Cameron in that movie.
Oh yeah, hilarious.
Hey, you guys with the water pistols. Oh,
uh, that I mean, again, it's one of the it's a lot like Repo Man. That's why I said it's interchangeable because it's actually more like Stakeout
yeah.
with that type of comedy. And that's what I think Emilio Estevez was really good at, which I think a lot of probably casting, directors missed out on and understanding like what he was really good at.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because that was a great, yeah, Charlie Sheen and him.
Right.
Keith David is always great. And then you got Dean Cameron as the pizza guy. I mean,
But
it's a quintessential 80s movie. It's not like gonna solve world hunger or anything, but it was just a
no,
very entertaining movie.
Well, that's what's missing in today's movies and today's writing is you're missing that being funny where you can take a silly script and you can make it good with good acting and the right timing within the lines.
Well, that's the problem now with the movie studios and everything. They've killed the independent movie, right? I mean, you're not going to have those great, like, under the cuff, like, low budget, funny movies anymore.
Right. Well, and don't you think that might be like a little bit of the audience though, too?
Well, I mean, here's the thing is, it's like what? I don't even know how much it is to get a go see a movie now.
Right. Well, that's the other thing, right? It's
And so,
it's
like, if I'm going to go
completely
to a movie, I'm
unaffordable.
not going to a movie theater to see a comedy anymore. You know, you only go to a movie theater to see big budget movies because you want to see it on the big screen. It used to be you go to a movie and to see all movies. Now it's more like, well, I got to save up money to see the big budget, big movies on the big screen.
Yeah, and you're not also going to see what you might think would be a B level comedy,
Right.
even though once you watch it, you're like, oh, this is A level.
Right. I remember in high school and stuff going and seeing like Billy Madison in the
Right.
theater and all this stuff. I mean, that wouldn't
Which become
happen.
a cult classic,
Yeah.
you know?
That would never happen nowadays. It'll be like,
No, no, of course
I'll
not.
wait till
It's
it comes out on streaming.
right. And that's a straight to Amazon Prime.
Right.
And so that's the tough part. And I get that. And so wrapping this up, I mean, obviously, when you look at this list and you start looking at his movies and you see Outsiders on there, to me, I'm going to say Outsiders is one of my favorite movies ever. I
Right.
love
Well, me too.
Outsiders.
It's just if I'm talking outsiders, it's Ralph Macchio, C.
Right.
Thomas Howell, Matt Dillon, Patrick Swayze.
So this is the same as the Kevin Bacon that we just did with A Few Good Men, right?
Right.
But at the same time, he still was in Outsiders, and he still played a part. And so those types of there are a few movies that he did that you're like, wow, those are great movies.
And I got one that's like Your Repo Man. It was like because Stephen King directed it and he was, I guess, coked out at the time and everything. But man, I loved Maximum Overdrive as a
Oh
kid.
yeah, dude. Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's very along the Repo Man lines.
Right.
I
I mean, you see
I did love that one too.
the Joker truck coming
Right.
out.
So overall, I mean, I guess when you wrap up the Emilio Estevez, there it was a limited amount of really good movies, but overall, like I think his top five, it's a good top five. Like those are movies that I would watch, and I've watched them all on a regular basis. So shout out to Emilio,
Yep. And he didn't change his name to fit into Hollywood.
right? You're like, hey, what up, Charlie and Martin?
Right.
You guys, they both did it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. When your dad,
Carlos.
even your dad did it.
I know.
So that was a good top five. I enjoy that one. Just wrap it up. NBA Finals wrap up. We got a couple top fives in there. Wedding in, jeez, 11 days.
And my mom's like, how's the losing weight going? And I'm like, it's not. So
Yeah.
that's gonna suck.
Well, I mean, I dropped 10 pounds in a week, but I didn't eat. So that's
I
how
just
that goes.
need to get that stomach flu right before so I can just
Right. Well, I appreciate everybody listening, everybody watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Thanks for all the Spotify listeners. And we'll get back to you. So, comments on any top fives you want to hear. Love to hear some comments. Help us out with top fives. We'll see you next time.